The crash. The vast emptiness of space shattered as two ships collided in a spectacular eruption of light and debris. Ambassador Jack Harper gripped his seat, knuckles white, as alarms blared throughout the diplomatic vessel. His mission to negotiate a peace treaty with the Zathri Empire had gone horribly wrong before it even began. Status report. Jack shouted over the cacophony of twisting metal and failing systems. The ship's air responded, its usual calm voice tinged with urgency. Hull breach in sections 3 through 7. Life support failing. Engines offline. We are caught in the gravitational pull of an uncharted planet. Jack's stomach lurched as the ship began its uncontrolled descent. Through the view screen, he watched the alien vessel that had collided with them spiraling alongside, both craft now locked in a deadly dance towards the planet's surface. Any contact with the Zathri ship? Jack asked, desperately hoping for some miracle of communication. Negative, Ambassador. All attempts at contact have failed. As the planet's atmosphere engulfed them, Jack closed his eyes and thought of Earth, of the billions counting on him to secure this treaty. He had never imagined his diplomatic career would end like this, in fire and twisted metal on some godforsaken rock. The impact came with a force that knocked the air from Jack's lungs. His world became a blur of pain and confusion as the ship skidded across the planet's surface, finally coming to rest in a field of strange, luminescent vegetation. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of ruptured pipes and the crackle of electrical fires. Jack unstrapped himself with trembling hands, every movement sending waves of agony through his battered body. He stumbled through the wreckage, calling out for survivors. "Hello, anyone?" His voice echoed through the empty corridors. A groan from nearby caught his attention. Jack limped towards the sound, finding his aide, Sarah Chen, pinned beneath a fallen bulkhead. "Sarah, hold on, I'll get you out." Jack strained against the metal, muscles screaming in protest. With a final heave, he shifted the debris enough for Sarah to crawl free. "Ambassador," she coughed, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. "What happened?" Jack helped her to her feet, surveying the destruction around them. "We collided with the Zathri ship. We've crashed on some unknown planet." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "The Zathri? Are there any other survivors?" Before Jack could answer, a metallic groan echoed through the ship. "We need to get out of here," he said urgently. This whole thing could come down on us at any moment. Together, they made their way to the emergency hatch, pausing only to grab the survival kits stowed nearby. As the hatch hissed open, they were hit by a wave of humid air, thick with unfamiliar scents. The alien landscape that greeted them was both beautiful and terrifying. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with ethereal light, casting eerie shadows across the crash site. In the distance, strange rock formations jutted against a sky painted with two moons, one a pale blue, the other a sickly green. "My God," Sarah whispered. "Where are we?" Jack activated his wrist computer, frowning at the display. "According to this, we're so far off our planned route that the system can't even identify our location. We're truly in uncharted space." A series of explosions from the other side of the clearing drew their attention. The Zathri ship, or what was left of it, lay in smoldering ruins about a kilometer away. "We should check for survivors," Jack said, already moving towards the alien wreckage. Sarah grabbed his arm. "Ambassador, with all due respect, are you insane? The Zathri are notoriously xenophobic. They'll kill us on sight." Jack shook his head. "We don't know that. This could be our chance to make real contact, to show them we're not the monsters their propaganda makes us out to be. Besides," he added grimly, "we might need their help to survive this place." As they approached the Zathri ship, movement caught Jack's eye. A figure emerged from the wreckage, tall and lithe, with iridescent scales covering its body. The alien's four eyes blinked in rapid succession, focusing on the humans with a mix of fear and aggression. Jack raised his hand slowly, showing he was unarmed. "We come in peace," he said, hoping the universal translator in his wrist computer was working. "We want to help." The Zathri hissed, revealing rows of sharp teeth. It spoke, the translator struggling to keep up. "Humans. Destroyers. You did this." "No," Jack said firmly. "It was an accident. We're victims too. Please let us help your wounded. We need to work together if we're going to survive." For a tense moment, Jack thought the alien would attack. Then slowly its posture relaxed. "Many hurt," it said. "Need help." Jack nodded, relief flooding through him. "I'm Jack Harper. This is Sarah Chen. What's your name?" The Zathri seemed to consider for a moment before responding. "Six Sarah, third navigator." Together, humans and alien began the grim task of searching for survivors. They found 5 more Zathri alive in the wreckage, each regarding the humans with a mixture of suspicion and desperate gratitude as they were pulled to safety. As night fell, casting the alien flora into a riot of bioluminescent color, the survivors gathered around a makeshift camp. The humans shared their rations, earning curious sniffs from the Zathri before hunger overcame caution. Jack studied their alien companions in the flickering light of the fire. Despite their fearsome appearance, scaled skin, sharp claws, and those unnerving four-eyed gazes, he saw in them the same fear and uncertainty that gripped his own heart. "We need to assess our situation," Jack said, addressing the group. "Our ships are beyond repair, and we have no way to contact our respective governments. Our only choice is to work together." Zixara, who seemed to have taken on a leadership role among the Zathri, nodded slowly. "Agreed. But trust is difficult." "I understand," Jack replied. "But consider this. If our peoples can overcome their differences here, in the face of adversity, imagine what it could mean for future relations between humans and Zathri." One of the other aliens, introduced as Krelvix, spoke up. "Pretty words, human, but actions matter more. How do we know you won't betray us when it suits you?" Sarah, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. "Because we need each other. This planet is unknown to all of us. Its dangers, its resources, we'll discover them together or die alone." Her words hung in the air, weighted with truth. Jack felt a surge of pride for his aide's diplomacy. Zixara's inner eyelids flickered, a gesture Jack was beginning to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "You speak wisdom, Sarah Chen. Very well. We will cooperate for now. But know this, any betrayal will be met with swift vengeance." Jack nodded solemnly. "Understood. Now let's take stock of our supplies and start planning for tomorrow. We need to find a more defensible position, fresh water, and food that won't poison either of our species." As the group began cataloging their meager resources, Jack pulled Sarah aside. "Good work back there," he said quietly. "You've got a knack for this." Sarah smiled tiredly. "I learned from the best, Ambassador. But what's our long-term plan? We can't stay here forever." Jack gazed up at the alien moons, their light casting long shadows across the strange landscape. "One step at a time, Sarah. We survive, we explore, and we hope. There might be resources here we can use to signal for help, or even repair one of the ships enough to get off planet. And if there isn't?" Sarah asked, voicing the fear they all shared. Jack set his jaw, determination flashing in his eyes. "Then we make do. We adapt. We showed the Zathri, and ourselves, what humans are truly capable of. This might not be the diplomatic mission we planned, but it's the one we've got. And I intend to see it through." As if in response to his words, a haunting cry echoed from the depths of the alien forest, sending shivers down Jack's spine. Whatever this planet held in store for them, he knew their greatest challenge would be overcoming the mistrust between their species. The night wore on, filled with the strange sounds of their new home and the uneasy murmurs of two species forced together by fate. Jack took the first watch, his eye scanning the pulsing shadows of the forest, mind racing with plans and possibilities. In the morning, they would begin their fight for survival in earnest. But for now, in this moment of fragile peace, Jack allowed himself a sliver of hope. They had already achieved the impossible, humans and Zathari, sworn enemies, breaking bread together under alien stars. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of purple and orange, Jack roused the camp. The Zathari, he noticed, were already alert, their four eyes blinking away the last vestiges of sleep far more quickly than their human counterparts. "All right," Jack addressed the group, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Our first priority is water. Without it, nothing else matters. Zixara, your people evolved from desert dwellers, right? Any special senses that might help us locate water sources?" The Zathari navigator's scales shimmered as she considered the question. "We can taste the air," Zixara explained, her forked tongue flicking out demonstratively. "Moisture leaves traces. But this world is strange. The air itself seems to hold water differently." Jack nodded, filing away this information. "Okay, that's still useful. We'll split into two teams. Sarah, you'll lead one group to scout for water. Take Krelvik's, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." He gestured to one of the other Zathari, a stockier individual with battle scars crisscrossing its scales. "Drakmor," the alien growled, warrior caste. "Right, Drakmor will go with you. The rest of us will salvage what we can from the wreckage and set up a more permanent camp." As the scouting party disappeared into the strange forest, Jack turned his attention to the crash sites. The twisted metal of both ships stood as a stark reminder of how precarious their situation was. Ambassador, one of the remaining Zathari, approached, its movements hesitant. This one was smaller than the others, with scales that seemed to shift color slightly to match its surroundings. "I am Venra, science officer. Perhaps I can assist in identifying salvageable technology." Jack smiled, grateful for the olive branch. "That would be invaluable, Venra. Let's start with communication systems. Even if we can't reach our homeworlds, we might be able to rig up some short-range communicators." As they worked, Jack found himself impressed by Venra's technical knowledge. The Zathari's four-fingered hands moved with surprising dexterity, coaxing life back into circuits that Jack would have thought beyond repair. "You know," Jack said as they extracted a promising-looking component from the human ship's wreckage, "in another life, our people could have done amazing things together." The Zathari grasp of quantum mechanics combined with human innovation. Venra's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a gesture Jack was beginning to interpret as emotional conflict. "Perhaps," the alien scientist admitted, "but our histories are stained with blood. Trust does not come easily." Jack nodded solemnly. "I understand. But here now, we have a chance to write a new history. One of cooperation, of mutual survival against the odds." Before Venra could respond, a piercing scream cut through the air. Jack's blood ran cold as he recognized Sarah's voice. "Come on," he shouted, grabbing a makeshift spear fashioned from wreckage. Venra hesitated only a moment before following, its color-shifting scales now a mottled pattern of alert reds and cautious grays. They crashed through the underbrush, bioluminescent plants leaving trails of light in their wake. Jack's heart pounded in his ears, every worst-case scenario flashing through his mind. They burst into a clearing to find a scene of chaos. Sarah and the two Zathari stood back to back, surrounded by a pack of alien creatures. The beasts were unlike anything Jack had ever seen. Six-legged, with skin that seemed to phase between solid and gaseous states. Their eyeless heads swiveled towards the newcomers, maws opening to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. Without hesitation, Jack charged forward, letting out a war cry that surprised even himself. Venra, showing unexpected courage, was right beside him. The battle was brief but brutal. Jack's spear found its mark in one creature's shifting hide, while Venra displayed a hidden talent for combat, its color-changing scales now a fierce, intimidating red as it grappled with another beast. When it was over, the alien predators lay still, their bodies slowly dissipating into mist. Jack rushed to Sarah, checking her for injuries. "I'm okay," she assured him, though her voice shook. They came out of nowhere, if it wasn't for Draknor's quick thinking. She gestured to the warrior Zathari, who stood proudly despite a nasty gash across its chest. Krelvix, the other Zathari in the scouting party, looked at Jack with newfound respect. "You came for us, fought alongside us." Jack nodded, still catching his breath. "Of course. We're in this together now." As they made their way back to camp, Jack noticed a subtle shift in the group dynamic. The Zathari walked closer to the humans, their postures less guarded. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was a start. Back at the crash site, as they tended to wounds and processed the encounter, Jack addressed the group. "What we faced out there is just the beginning. This planet will throw challenge after challenge at us. But today, we proved that together, we can overcome anything." He looked each survivor in the eye, human and Zathari alike. "We are no longer two separate crews, no longer enemies. From this moment on, we are one team. Our differences, our unique strengths, they're not weaknesses to be feared. They're assets that will ensure our survival." As night fell once more, Jack looked out over their makeshift camp. Humans and Zathari sat together, sharing stories and survival tips. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. But for the first time since the crash, Jack felt a spark of genuine hope. They would survive this. And in doing so, they might just forge a bond between their species that would change the course of galactic history. As he settled in for another vigilant night, Jack Harper, ambassador turned survivor, allowed himself a small smile. The mission to bring peace between humans and Zathari wasn't over. It had only just begun. Uneasy alliances. The alien sun rose, casting an eerie green light across the crash site. Jack Harper wiped the sweat from his brow, already feeling the oppressive heat of the day settling in. A week had passed since their crash landing, and while tensions between the humans and Zathari had eased somewhat, challenges continued to mount. "Ambassador," Sarah called, approaching with Zixara at her side. The sight of the human and Zathari working together still gave Jack a glimmer of hope. "We finished mapping the immediate area. There's a cave system about 2 kilometers north that might offer better shelter." Zixara's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of excitement Jack had come to recognize. The caves also promise protection from solar radiation. "Our scales offer some defense, but your fragile human skin." She trailed off, mandibles clicking in what might have been concern. Jack nodded, touched by the alien's consideration. "Good work, both of you. Let's gather everyone and plan our move." As the group assembled, Jack couldn't help but marvel at how quickly they'd adapted to working together. Venra, the Zathari scientist, had proven invaluable in helping repair some of their equipment. Drakmor, initially the most aggressive towards the humans, now stood protectively near Sarah, a grudging respect evident in his posture. "All right, listen up," Jack began, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "We're going to relocate to a cave system nearby. It'll offer better protection from the elements and potential predators. But moving means exposure. We'll need to be on high alert." Krelvix, the Zathri who had been on the scouting mission with Sarah, raised a clawed hand. "What of the ship wreckage? There is still much we could salvage." Jack had considered this. "We'll make multiple trips if we have to. Our lives are more important than any piece of technology right now." As they prepared for the move, Jack pulled Sarah aside. "How are you holding up?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Sarah managed a tired smile. "I'm okay, Ambassador. It's strange, but I feel like I'm starting to understand the Zathri better. Zixara has been teaching me their language, beyond what the translators can handle. Did you know they have 15 different words for duty?" Jack chuckled. "That doesn't surprise me." "Keep it up, Sarah. That kind of cultural exchange might just save us all." The trek to the caves was tense. Every rustle in the bioluminescent underbrush, every alien bird call, set them on edge. Jack found himself walking beside Venra, the Zathri scientist's color-shifting scales, a kaleidoscope of anxious patterns. "Your world," Venra began hesitantly, "Earth. Is it very different from this place?"
As Zara concluded the overview of Earth's natural dangers, she could see the shock and disbelief on the faces of her classmates. But she knew she had to address one more crucial point. "However," she said, her tone becoming more serious, "perhaps the most dangerous entity on Earth is humanity itself." The hologram shifted to show scenes of warfare throughout human history, from ancient battles to modern conflicts. Zara explained the destructive power of nuclear weapons, the insidious nature of biological warfare, and the global threat of climate change caused by human activity. "We humans have the unique ability to amplify the dangers of our world," Zara said, her voice tinged with regret. "Our actions can trigger natural disasters, exacerbate pandemics, and drive entire species to extinction." The amphitheater was dead silent. Even Professor Zix seemed too stunned to move. But then Zara's expression softened, and a smile played on her lips. "And yet," she said, her voice filled with pride, "we endure. We adapt. We overcome." The hologram changed once more, this time showing scenes of human resilience and triumph. Cities rising from the ashes of natural disasters, medical breakthroughs saving millions of lives, conservationists working to protect endangered species. "Yes, Earth is dangerous," Zara concluded, "but it's also our home. Its challenges have forged us into a species of survivors, innovators, and explorers. We don't just live on our death world, we thrive on it. And now we're ready to face the challenges of the galaxy alongside all of you." As Zara finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then, slowly, applause began to build. It started with Pip, then spread to Lux and Graviton, and soon the entire amphitheater was filled with the sound of clapping, tentacle waving, and various alien forms of appreciation. Professor Zix's gaseous form expanded and contracted rapidly, his equivalent of enthusiastic applause. "Extraordinary," he exclaimed. "In all my cycles of teaching, I've never encountered such a compelling presentation. You've not only showcased the dangers of your respective worlds, but also demonstrated the remarkable adaptability of life itself." As the applause died down, the questions began. Alien students clamored to know more about Earth and its inhabitants. "How do you sleep knowing such dangers surround you?" one student asked. Zara chuckled. "Most of the time, we don't think about it. We've learned to respect our environment while also living our lives to the fullest." Another student, a crystalline being, chimed in. "But surely, with such constant threats, your species must be dwindling." "On the contrary," Zara replied, "Earth's human population is over 8 billion and growing. We've spread to nearly every corner of our world." The questions continued, ranging from inquiries about specific dangers to broader philosophical discussions about the nature of life on a deaf world. Zara and her teammates did their best to address each one, drawing on their collective knowledge and experiences. As the class finally came to an end, Zara felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had done more than just complete a school project. She had begun to change the galaxy's perception of Earth and humanity. Walking out of the Xenobiology Center, Zara was surrounded by curious classmates. Even Krex, the initially hostile four-armed being, approached her with a newfound respect in their multiple eyes. "I may have misjudged you and your species," Krex admitted grudgingly. "To survive in such conditions, it's most impressive." Zara smiled, extending her hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Thank you, Krex. I hope we can learn more from each other in the future." Krex hesitated for a moment, then grasped Zara's hand with one of their forearms. "I would like that," they said. As Zara made her way back to her dormitory, she felt a shift in the air around her. The whispers and stares that had followed her since her arrival now held a different tone, one of curiosity, admiration, and perhaps a touch of fear. She knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much to learn, so much to share. But for the first time since arriving at the Galactic Academy, Zara felt truly at home. She was no longer just the strange Deathworlder. She was Zara Martinez, proud representative of Earth and all its beautiful, terrifying complexity. That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Zara dreamed not of Earth's dangers, but of its wonders. She saw herself showing her new alien friends the majesty of the Grand Canyon, the serenity of a redwood forest, the vibrant life of a coral reef. In her dreams, the galaxy opened up before her, full of new worlds to explore and new challenges to overcome. And she knew, deep in her heart, that whatever the universe might throw at her, she, and humanity, would be ready to face it head-on.
Drakmor was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps, he finally said, "But trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, as you humans say. Do not mistake necessity for friendship, Ambassador." Before Jack could respond, a commotion from deeper in the cavern drew their attention. They rushed back to find Sarah and Venra standing before a section of wall that had slid away, revealing a hidden chamber. "We did it," Sarah exclaimed, her face flushed with excitement. "We cracked the code in the markings. It's a language, but also a lock mechanism." Jack peered into the darkness beyond. Any idea what's in there? Venra's scales shimmered with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Based on the energy readings, it could be a power source, perhaps even a communication array. The implications hung heavy in the air. A power source could mean a way to boost their distress signal. A communication array might allow them to contact their homeworlds directly. "Right," Jack said, his mind racing with possibilities and potential dangers. "We proceed with caution. Venra, take Krelvix and see what you can learn. The rest of us will stay back in case anything goes wrong." As the Zathri scientist and his companion ventured into the hidden chamber, Jack felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. Every decision he made could mean the difference between life and death, between forging a lasting peace and reigniting the conflicts that had driven their peoples apart. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Finally, Venra and Krelvix emerged, their expressions unreadable. "Well?" Jack prompted, the tension in the cavern palpable. Venra's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "It's remarkable. The chamber houses a device of immense power. From what we can gather, it's capable of manipulating space-time itself." A hushed murmur ran through the group. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Are you saying it's some kind of teleportation device?" Krelvix nodded, his usual gruffness tempered by awe. "That appears to be its primary function. But the complexity of the system, it's like nothing we've ever encountered." Jack's mind raced with the implications. Can we use it to get home? Venra's scales shifted to a cautionary yellow. Theoretically, yes, but the risks are enormous. We don't fully understand the technology. A miscalculation could scatter us across the galaxy, or worse. The cavern fell silent as everyone grappled with this new information. It was Zixara who finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of her navigator's experience. "We have a choice to make," she said, looking around at the assembled survivors. "We can stay here, continue to study this technology, and hope for rescue. Or we can take a leap of faith, trust in our combined knowledge, and attempt to use this device." Jack felt all eyes turn to him. Human and Zathri alike looked to him for direction, for hope. The responsibility was almost overwhelming. "We don't make this decision lightly," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "We've come too far, survived too much, to rush into anything. I propose we take a day. Study the device, weigh our options. Tomorrow, we vote. Together, as one people." The agreement was unanimous. As the group dispersed to consider their options, Jack found himself standing alone before the entrance to the hidden chamber. The soft glow of alien technology spilled out, promising salvation or damnation. Sarah approached, laying a hand on his arm. "Hell of a situation, huh? When I signed up for this diplomatic mission, I never imagined." Jack managed a wry smile. "That you'd end up stranded on an alien world, deciding the fate of two species. Yeah, they don't really cover that in training." They shared a moment of rueful laughter, the absurdity of their situation providing a brief respite from the weight of responsibility. "What do you think we should do?" Sarah asked, her voice serious once more. Jack sighed, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "Honestly, I don't know. Every fiber of my diplomatic training is screaming that we need to be cautious, that we can't risk further damaging relations between humans and Zathri." But we can't stay here forever," Sarah finished for him. "Exactly. And part of me thinks that if we can pull this off, if we can work together to master this alien technology and get home, it could change everything. Prove to both our peoples that cooperation isn't just possible, it's essential." As night fell, or what passed for night in the eternal twilight of the cavern, Jack made his rounds. He spoke with each survivor, human and Zathri alike, listening to their fears, their hopes, their opinions on what they should do next. He found Drakmor last, the warrior standing vigil at the cavern entrance as always. They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching the alien moons rise over a landscape that was becoming disturbingly familiar. "You know," Jack said finally, "back on Earth, there's an old saying, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.' I always thought it was a cynical way to look at diplomacy. But being here, facing all this," he gestured to the alien world beyond. Drakmor's scales rippled thoughtfully. "We have a similar saying. In the desert storm, even rivals share shelter. Perhaps that is what we are doing here, Ambassador, sharing shelter against a greater threat." Jack nodded, surprised and heartened by the warrior's insight. "Maybe so, and maybe when the storm passes, we'll find we're not rivals anymore." As he settled in for another restless night, Jack Harper, ambassador turned survivor turned reluctant leader, felt the weight of tomorrow's decision pressing down on him. Whatever they chose, he knew their time on this alien world had changed them all. The question was, would it be enough to change the course of history? In the darkness of the cavern, surrounded by the soft breathing of humans and Zathri alike, Jack allowed himself to hope that it would. The discovery. The day of the vote dawned with an air of nervous anticipation. Jack had barely slept, his mind racing with the potential outcomes of their decision. As he emerged from his makeshift quarters, he found the cavern already bustling with activity. Venra and Sarah were huddled over a jury-rigged console, their expressions intense as they pored over data from the alien device. Zixara and Krelevix were engaged in a heated discussion, their mandibles clicking rapidly in their native tongue. Even Drakmor seemed on edge, his usually stoic demeanor betrayed by the constant shifting of his scales. Jack cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "All right, folks, I know we're all feeling the pressure today. Before we vote, I want to open the floor. Anyone who has concerns, insights, or opinions, now's the time to share them." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, to Jack's surprise, it was Krelevix who stepped forward. "I have been skeptical of humans," the Zathri began, his voice gruff. "Our histories are stained with conflict. But here on this world, I have seen another side. Ambassador Harper, your leadership has been adequate." Jack bit back a smile at the grudging compliment. Krelvix continued, "I believe we should attempt to use the device. The risks are great, yes, but the risk of remaining here, of never seeing our homes again, is greater still." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group, but Drakmor's voice cut through the noise. "And what of the consequences? If we succeed, if we return to our worlds with this technology, what then? Do we trust that our governments will use it wisely for peace? Or will it become a new weapon in an old war?" The cavern fell silent as the weight of Drakmor's words sank in. Jack felt a swell of respect for the warrior's foresight. It was a concern he'd grappled with himself. Sarah spoke up next, her voice steady despite the tension. "I understand the risks, but I think we're overlooking an incredible opportunity here. This isn't just about getting home. It's about what we bring back with us. Not just the technology, but the experience. The knowledge that humans and Zathri can work together, can trust each other." Venra's scales rippled in agreement. Sarah is correct. What we've accomplished here, the bonds we've formed, they are as valuable as any technology. Perhaps more so. Jack nodded, feeling a swell of pride in his team. These are all valid points. We're not just deciding our own fates here. We're potentially shaping the future of both our species. It's a heavy responsibility, but I believe we're equal to it. He paused, looking each survivor in the eye, human and Zathri alike. "So here's what I propose. We vote on whether to attempt to use the device. But with a condition. If we succeed, if we make it back, we all agree to become advocates for peace. To share our experiences, to push for cooperation rather than conflict. Can we all commit to that?" The response was immediate and unanimous. Even Drakmor, after a moment's hesitation, nodded his assent. "All right then," Jack said, his heart pounding. "Let's vote." The decision was not unanimous, but the majority favored attempting to use the device. As the reality of their choice sank in, a mix of excitement and apprehension filled the cavern. "Venra, Sarah," Jack called out, "you're our experts on this technology. What do we need to do to prepare?" The human and Zathri scientists exchanged a look before Sarah spoke. "We've made some progress in understanding the device's interface. We think we can set coordinates, but, Jack prompted. Venra's scales shifted to a cautionary yellow. "The power requirements are immense. We'll need to channel energy from the entire cavern system. And even then, we may only get one shot at this." Jack nodded grimly. "Understood." Zixara organized teams to set up the power transfer. "Drakmor, I want you on security. If this energy surge attracts attention from any local wildlife, we need to be ready." As the group dispersed to their tasks, Jack felt a tug on his arm. It was Lumina, one of the younger Zathri who had been quiet throughout much of their ordeal. Ambassador, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared. What if something goes wrong? What if we end up somewhere worse? Jack felt a surge of protective instinct. He placed a reassuring hand on Lumina's shoulder, marveling at how natural the gesture felt now. I understand your fear. Believe me, I share it. But look around you. Look at what we've accomplished together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as one. You're not alone, Lumina. None of us are. Not anymore. The young Zathri's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of emotional turmoil. Then, to Jack's surprise, she threw her arms around him in a very human-like hug. After a moment's shock, he returned the embrace, feeling the alien's rapid heartbeat against his chest. As Lumina pulled away, looking slightly embarrassed, Jack realized that somewhere along the way, these aliens had become more than allies. They had become family. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The cavern hummed with energy as makeshift conduits channeled power from the bioluminescent flora throughout the cave system. Venra and Sarah worked feverishly at the device's controls, their earlier caution giving way to a focused determination. As the moment of truth approached, Jack gathered everyone in the central chamber. The alien device loomed before them, pulsing with an otherworldly energy that set Jack's teeth on edge. "This is it," he said, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "Whatever happens next, I want you all to know how proud I am. Of all of you, human and Zathri alike. We've faced impossible odds, and we've done it together." He paused, feeling the weight of the moment. "When we started this journey, we were enemies. Suspicious, afraid, bound by old hatreds. Now we're something else. Something new. Whatever happens when we activate this device, whether we make it home or end up on the other side of the universe, we do it as one people. United." A chorus of agreement rose from the group, human and Zathri voices blending in a harmony that would have been unthinkable mere weeks ago. Venra, Sarah, Jack nodded to the scientists. "It's time." As the two approached the control panel, a sudden tremor shook the cavern. Dust and small rocks rained down from the ceiling. "What was that?" Sarah asked, her navigator's instincts on high alert. Before anyone could respond, another tremor hit, stronger this time. A crack appeared in one of the cavern walls, glowing with the same energy that powered the alien device. The power surge, Venra said, his scales shifting rapidly in alarm. "It's destabilizing the entire cave system." Jack's mind raced. They were out of time. Everyone, gather close to the device. Venra, Sarah, activate it now. As the group huddled together, Jack found himself standing between Drakmor and Lumina. The warrior's scales were a riot of color, betraying his anxiety, while Lumina clung to Jack's arm, her four eyes wide with fear. Sarah's fingers flew over the alien controls, Venra calling out adjustments in a language that blended Zathri clicks and human technical jargon. The device's pulsing grew more intense, the air around them seeming to shimmer and distort. Another violent tremor rocked the cavern. A large section of the ceiling came crashing down mere meters from the group. Jack instinctively pulled Lumina closer, while Drakmor moved to shield them both. "Now," Venra shouted. "It's now or never." Sarah slammed her hand down on what they hoped was the activation sequence. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound that seemed to exist more in their minds than in the air around them, the world exploded into light. Jack felt a sensation of falling, of being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Colors he had no names for flashed before his eyes. He was dimly aware of the others around him, their forms blurring and shifting in impossible ways. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The light faded, the roaring in Jack's ears subsided, and he found himself lying on a cold, hard surface. Groans and confused murmurs around him indicated that the others were coming to as well. Slowly, cautiously, Jack opened his eyes. They were no longer in the cavern. The alien device was gone. Instead, they found themselves in what appeared to be a massive hangar bay. Sleek, otherworldly vessels lined the walls. And at the far end of the chamber, a window looked out onto a starfield unlike anything Jack had ever seen. By the first egg, Sarah breathed. "Where are we?" As the group struggled to their feet, taking in their new surroundings, a voice boomed out from hidden speakers. The language was unlike anything they'd heard before, but somehow Jack understood every word. "Welcome, children of Earth and Zathra. We have been expecting you." Jack's mind reeled. They'd been expected. How was that possible? He looked to his companions, seeing his own confusion and awe mirrored in their faces, human and Zathri alike. Before anyone could respond to the mysterious greeting, a door at the far end of the hangar slid open. A being stepped through, its form so alien that Jack's eyes had trouble focusing on it. It seemed to shift and change as it moved, as if it existed in more dimensions than Jack could perceive. The being spoke again, its voice somehow both in the air and directly in their minds. "You have passed the first test. You have learned to work together, to overcome your differences in the face of adversity. But your journey is far from over." Jack stepped forward, instinctively positioning himself between the alien entity and his companions. "Who are you? What is this place?" The being's form shimmered, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw a flicker of approval in its ever-changing features. "We are the precursors. This is our home, our final refuge. And you, children of Earth and Zathra, are our last hope." A hushed murmur ran through the group. The precursors were supposed to be a myth, an ancient race that had vanished eons ago. Yet here they were, standing before one. The precursor continued, its voice carrying the weight of unimaginable age and wisdom. "Long ago, our civilizations spanned galaxies. We seeded worlds, guided the evolution of countless species. But we grew complacent, arrogant. We unleashed forces we could not control." Images flashed in Jack's mind, entire worlds consumed by darkness, civilizations crumbling, a war that raged across the stars. "We retreated here, to this pocket of space-time, to plan, to wait. We created tests, trials to find species worthy of inheriting our legacy. You are the first to succeed in millennia." Jack's diplomatic instincts kicked in, overriding his shock and awe. "With all due respect," he said, choosing his words carefully, "we didn't come here to inherit anyone's legacy. We're just trying to get home." The precursor's form rippled in what might have been amusement. "Are you so sure those goals are separate, Ambassador Harper?" The device that brought you here was more than a teleporter. It was a key, unlocking potential within you that you've only begun to realize. Jack felt a strange tingling sensation throughout his body. Looking at his companions, he saw expressions of wonder and confusion. Venra's scales were shifting through colors Jack had never seen before. Sarah's eyes seemed to glow with an inner light. "What have you done to us?" Drakmor demanded, his warrior's instincts on high alert. "We have awakened what was always there," the precursor replied. "The next stage in your evolution, but it is only the beginning. You must learn to control these gifts, to use them wisely. And you must prepare." "Prepare for what?" Zixara asked, her navigator's curiosity overcoming her fear. The precursor's form darkened, and Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "For the return of those we could not defeat, the ones who drove us into hiding. They sleep now, but they will awaken. And when they do, the galaxy, the universe itself, we'll need protectors. As the weight of the precursor's words sank in, Jack looked around at his companions. Humans and Zathri, former enemies turned allies, now facing a destiny none of them could have imagined. He saw fear in their eyes, yes, but also determination. Courage. Jack turned back to the precursor, standing tall despite the enormity of what they faced. "We didn't ask for this responsibility," he said, his voice steady. "But we've learned that great challenges can forge unlikely alliances. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The precursor's form seemed to smile, though Jack couldn't be sure. "Then let your training begin, children of Earth and Zathra. The fate of all rests in your hands." As the hangar bay transformed around them, reshaping itself into what Jack could only assume was some kind of training facility, he felt a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. They had sought a way home, but had found a new purpose instead. A greater destiny. Whatever trials lay ahead, Jack knew one thing for certain. The journey that had begun with a crash landing on an alien world was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Rising challenges. The days that followed their arrival in the precursor facility blurred together in a whirlwind of activity. Jack and his companions found themselves thrust into a training regimen unlike anything they could have imagined. The very fabric of reality seemed malleable here, with environments shifting and changing to present new challenges at every turn. As Jack ducked under a plasma burst, rolling to take cover behind a shimmering energy barrier, he marveled at how quickly they were adapting to their new abilities. Sarah, her eyes glowing with newfound power, telekinetically hurled debris at approaching holographic enemies. Nearby, Venra's scales rippled with complex patterns, perfectly camouflaging him against the ever-changing backdrop. "Watch your left flank," Jack called out, his enhanced senses picking up a threat before it fully materialized. Drakmore, taking the warning to heart, spun with inhuman speed, his claws now capable of rending even the toughest energy shields. As the simulation faded away, leaving them standing in a featureless white room, Jack took a moment to catch his breath. The physical exhaustion was real, even if the dangers had been illusory. Impressive progress. The voice of their precursor mentor resonated in their minds. The being they had come to know as the Guardian materialized before them, its form still as mesmerizing and difficult to focus on as ever. "But you have only scratched the surface of your potential." Zixara stepped forward, her navigator's curiosity burning bright. "Guardian, we've been training for weeks now, pushing ourselves to the limit. Yet you say we've only scratched the surface. What exactly are we preparing for? What enemy could be so formidable that it requires this?" She gestured to herself and the others, their forms now subtly altered by the awakening of their latent abilities. The Guardian's form shimmered, and Jack felt a wave of somber emotion wash over him. "The threat you face is ancient, children, older than your civilizations, older even than the precursors themselves. We called them the Void Hunters, for they consume not just matter and energy, but the very fabric of space-time itself." Images flashed in their minds, vast, shadowy entities that seemed to devour entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty, lifeless voids in their wake. "But truly," Sarah interjected, her scientific mind racing, "if these Void Hunters are so powerful, how can we hope to stand against them? Even with these new abilities, we're just us." The Guardian's form brightened slightly. "That, dear Sarah, is precisely why you were chosen. The Void Hunters are beings of pure consumption, of entropy. They cannot comprehend creation, cooperation, the forging of bonds across boundaries. Your group, humans and Zathri working together despite your histories, represents a power they cannot fathom. Jack processed this information, his diplomatic instincts kicking into high gear. So we're not just training to fight. We're training to embody an idea, a principle of unity that's anathema to these void hunters. Precisely, Ambassador, the Guardian confirmed. Your physical and mental abilities are important, yes, but it is your capacity for growth, for overcoming differences, that truly makes you formidable. As the implications of this sank in, Drakmor spoke up, his warrior's pragmatism shining through. Fine words, Guardian. But how do we translate this? This idea of unity into a practical defense against these cosmic horrors. The Guardian's form rippled in what Jack had come to recognize as approval. An excellent question, Drakmor. The answer lies in your continued evolution, both as individuals and as a team. You must learn to synchronize your abilities, to become more than the sum of your parts. With that, the White Room began to shift and change once more. This time, however, instead of a combat scenario, they found themselves in what appeared to be a vast, interdimensional puzzle box. Platforms floated in midair, pathways appeared and disappeared, and strange energy fields pulsed with otherworldly power. Your next trial begins now, the Guardian's voice echoed as its form faded away. Work together. Overcome. Evolve. For hours, or was it days? Time seemed fluid in this place. They struggled against the ever-changing landscape. Each of them faced challenges tailored to their weaknesses, forcing them to rely on one another in new and unexpected ways. Jack found himself on a platform surrounded by a field that negated his enhanced senses, leaving him feeling blind and vulnerable. I can't see anything. He called out, frustration evident in his voice. I've got you, Ambassador. Venra's voice came from somewhere nearby. The Zathri scientist, his camouflage ability now honed to perfection, guided Jack through the invisible maze, their trust in each other growing with each step. Meanwhile, Sarah faced a series of complex energy patterns that defied her telekinetic manipulation. It was Zixara, applying her navigator's intuition to the multidimensional problem, who helped Sarah find the solution. It's not about moving the energy, Zixara explained, her four eyes tracking patterns Jack could barely perceive. It's about understanding its flow, becoming one with it. As Sarah internalized this advice, her powers evolved. No longer was she simply moving objects with her mind. Now she could influence the very currents of energy around her. Drakmor, for his part, faced a challenge that his incredible speed and strength couldn't overcome. He found himself in a chamber where every aggressive action he took was turned back upon him. I don't understand. The warrior roared in frustration, his scales flashing with anger. How am I supposed to fight if I can't? Fight? It was Lumina, the young Zathari who had been quiet for much of their training, who provided the key. Maybe you're not supposed to fight at all, Drakmor, she said softly. Maybe the solution is to yield, to redirect rather than resist. The concept was foreign to the warrior, but as he embraced it, he found his abilities transforming. His incredible reflexes now allowed him to flow around attacks, to turn an enemy's strength against them with minimal effort. As they progressed through the trial, Jack felt something profound shifting within the group. It wasn't just their individual abilities that were evolving, there was a synergy developing, a sense of connection that transcended their physical forms. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of challenges, they found themselves back in the White Room, exhausted but exhilarated. The Guardian materialized before them, its form somehow clearer, more defined than before. Well done, children, it said, and Jack could have sworn he heard a note of pride in its otherworldly voice. You have taken the first steps towards true unity, but your greatest challenges lie ahead. What do you mean? Jack asked, a sense of foreboding creeping over him. The Guardian's form darkened slightly. The Void Hunters stir in their cosmic slumber. Your presence here, the awakening of your potential, has not gone unnoticed. Soon you will face your first real test. A stunned silence fell over the group. They had known, intellectually, that they were training for a real threat. But the immediacy of it, the reality of facing these cosmic horrors, was daunting. "But we're not ready," Sarah said, voicing the fear they all felt. "We've only just begun to understand these abilities, to work together like this." The Guardian's response was gentle but firm. "One is never truly ready for such challenges, Sarah. But you have within you the potential for greatness. Trust in each other, in the bonds you have forged." As the Guardian's form began to fade, it left them with one final message. "Rest now, children of Earth and Zathra. When you wake, your true mission will begin. The fate of galaxies rests in your hands." With that, the White Room dissolved around them, replaced by the comfortable quarters they had been assigned upon their arrival. As the adrenaline of their training faded, exhaustion hit them like a physical force. Jack looked around at his companions, human and Zathri alike, seeing in their eyes the same mix of fear, determination, and wonder that he felt. They had come so far from that crash landing on an alien world, had grown and changed in ways none of them could have imagined. And yet, he realized their journey was only beginning. "Get some rest, everyone," he said, mustering a confident smile he didn't entirely feel. "Tomorrow, we save the universe." As the others retreated to their rooms, Jack found himself unable to sleep. He wandered the halls of the precursor facility, marveling at technology so advanced it might as well be magic. Eventually, he found himself in what appeared to be an observation deck, looking out at a starfield unlike anything he had ever seen. "Trouble sleeping, Ambassador?" Zixara's voice came from behind him. The Zathri navigator joined him at the window, her four eyes reflecting the alien constellations. Jack managed a wry smile. "Just trying to wrap my head around all of this. A few weeks ago, my biggest concern was negotiating trade agreements. Now we bear the weight of entire galaxies," Zixara finished for him. "It is overwhelming." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, the enormity of their situation hanging between them. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice soft but determined. "You know, when I first took this diplomatic mission, I had such high hopes. I thought if we could just get humans and Zathri to talk, to really see each other, we could end centuries of conflict." He chuckled ruefully. "I never imagined it would take a cosmic threat to bring us together." Zixara's mandibles clicked in what Jack had come to recognize as amusement. The universe, it seems, has a strange sense of humor. But perhaps this was always our destiny, Ambassador. Perhaps we needed this crucible to forge something greater than either of our species could have become alone. Jack nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're right. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Not as humans and Zathri, but as something new, something more." As if in response to his words, a shudder ran through the facility. Alarms began to blare, and the starfield before them seemed to warp and twist. "Warning," the Guardian's voice resonated in their minds. "Void Hunter incursion detected. Prepare for imminent contact." Jack and Zixara shared a look of determination. Without a word, they raced back to gather the others. The time for preparation was over. Their true test was about to begin. As they assembled in the control room, each of them crackling with newly awakened powers, Jack felt a surge of pride and affection for this unlikely family they had forged. Humans and Zathri, former enemies united against a common threat, now standing as the last line of defense for all of creation. "All right, everyone," Jack said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. This is what we've been training for. Whatever comes through that dimensional rift, we face it together. For Earth, for Zathra, for every world that will never know the sacrifice we make here today. As the fabric of reality before them began to tear, revealing the nightmarish form of their first Void Hunter, Jack felt a sense of calm settle over him. They were ready. They were united. And together, they would fight for the future of all life in the universe. The battle for existence itself was about to begin. Breakthrough. The dimensional rift tore open like a wound in reality itself, spilling forth an entity that defied comprehension. The Void Hunter was a writhing mass of darkness, its form constantly shifting and pulsing, tendrils of nothingness reaching out to consume everything in its path. Jack felt a primal fear grip his heart, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the training they had endured. "Remember what we've learned," he called out to his team. "We're stronger together. Synchronize." As the Void Hunter surged forward, the team sprang into action. Sarah, her eyes glowing with psychic energy, created a telekinetic barrier to slow the entity's advance. Venra's scales rippled with complex patterns, projecting a field of dimensional stability that seemed to confuse and disorient the Void Hunter. Drakmor, his warrior instincts honed to supernatural levels, darted in and out of the creature's reach, his claws leaving trails of light that seemed to wound the darkness. Zixara's navigator abilities had evolved into something more, allowing her to perceive weak points in the fabric of space-time around the entity. "There," Zixara shouted, her four eyes locked onto a swirling vortex within the Void Hunter's mass. "That's its core. If we can disrupt it, we might be able to force it back through the rift." Jack nodded, his enhanced senses taking in the battlefield in a fraction of a second. "Lumina, can you generate a light pulse to distract it? Venra, be ready to amplify the pulse with your dimensional field." The Yonzathri, who had discovered an ability to manipulate pure energy, nodded nervously. As Lumina concentrated, her body began to glow with an inner light. At Jack's signal, she released a blinding flash, which Venra's field refracted and magnified. The Void Hunter recoiled, its tendrils writhing in what might have been pain. In that moment of weakness, Jack saw their opportunity. "Now, Sarah," he shouted, "push it back." Sarah, sweat beading on her brow, reached out with her telekinetic powers. But instead of simply pushing against the Void Hunter, she did something unexpected. Drawing on the lessons of their training, Sarah attuned her energy to the dimensional frequencies Zixara had identified. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Void Hunter's form began to unravel, its darkness being pulled back towards the rift. But the entity fought back with terrifying force, lashing out with tendrils of void energy that threatened to engulf them all. "It's too strong," Sarah cried out, her voice strained with effort. "I can't hold it alone." Without hesitation, Jack reached out and grasped Sarah's hand. In that moment of contact, he felt his own energy synchronize with hers, amplifying her power. One by one, the others joined in: Venra, Zixara, Drakmor, Lumina, each adding their unique abilities to the collective effort. Together, they pushed against the cosmic horror, their combined will a beacon of creation against the entropy of the void. The hunter writhed and thrashed, its unearthly shriek echoing across dimensions. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the outcome hung in the balance. Then with a final, reality-shaking implosion, the Void Hunter was forced back through the rift. The dimensional tear sealed itself, leaving behind an eerie silence broken only by the heavy breathing of the exhausted team. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Jack looked around at his companions. They were battered, drained, but alive. More than that, there was a new light in their eyes, a realization of what they could accomplish together. We did it, Lumina said, her voice filled with awe. We actually defeated a void hunter. The Guardian materialized before them, its form clearer and more defined than ever before. Indeed you have, children. You have passed a crucial test, but it is only the beginning. Jack stepped forward, still trying to process what they had just accomplished. Guardian, that entity, it was like nothing we've ever faced. How can we hope to defeat more of them? To protect entire galaxies? The Guardian's form shimmered with what might have been pride. You already hold the answer, Ambassador Harper. What you achieved today was not just a victory of power, but of unity. The Void Hunters are beings of singular purpose, of consumption and entropy. They cannot comprehend the strength that comes from diversity, from the synergy of different beings working as one. Benra, his scales still rippling with residual energy, spoke up. But surely they will adapt, learn from this encounter. We caught this one by surprise, but the next will be stronger, the Guardian agreed. But so will you. What you experienced in that battle, the merging of your abilities, the amplification of your powers, that is merely the first step on a path of infinite potential. As the implications of this sank in, Jack felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. They had tapped into something profound, a power born from their unity that transcended their individual abilities. But with that power came immense responsibility. So what happens now? Sarah asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. The Guardian's form expanded, encompassing them all in a field of shimmering energy. Now you evolve. You learn. You grow not just as individuals, but as a collective. The fate of countless worlds rests on your ability to unlock the full potential of your unity. With those words, the world around them began to shift and change. The control room of the precursor facility faded away, replaced by a swirling vortex of cosmic energy. Jack felt his consciousness expanding, merging with those of his companions in ways that defied description. In this state of heightened awareness, Jack saw glimpses of possible futures, worlds saved and worlds lost, civilizations rising and falling, the eternal dance of creation and destruction playing out across the cosmos. But through it all, he saw his team, his family, standing as a bulwark against the encroaching void. When the vision faded and they found themselves back in the facility, Jack knew that something fundamental had changed. The bonds between them had deepened, transcending the physical and touching something eternal. Whoa, Sarah breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Did everyone else feel that? Nods of agreement came from around the room, each of them trying to process the profound experience they had shared. Drakmore, usually the most stoic of the group, looked shaken. I saw possibilities, countless battles, victories and defeats. But through it all, we were together. Not just together, Zixara added, her navigator's intuition reaching new heights. We were one. A singular entity born from our diverse parts. Jack nodded, feeling the truth of their words resonating within him. The Guardian said we had infinite potential. I think we just got a glimpse of what that really means. As they discussed their shared vision, trying to make sense of the cosmic download they had received, alarms began to blare once more. The Guardian's voice echoed through the facility. Children, your victory has not gone unnoticed. The Void Hunters stir in greater numbers. You must prepare for a greater challenge. Jack looked at his team, seeing in their eyes the same determination he felt. They were tired, yes, still reeling from their first true battle, and the mind-bending vision that followed. But there was also a new strength there, a confidence born from their shared triumph. All right, everyone, Jack said, his voice carrying the weight of leadership. We've proven what we can do together. Now it's time to push our limits even further. Guardian, what's our next move? The Guardian's form coalesced into a more humanoid shape, though still shimmering with otherworldly energy. You must learn to maintain your collective consciousness, even in the heat of battle. To think and act as one while still leveraging your individual strengths. The facility around them began to transform once more, this time into a vast training arena that seemed to span multiple dimensions. Your next trial begins now, the Guardian announced. Face your fears, overcome your limitations, and forge a bond that even the void cannot break. As swarms of simulated void hunters materialized around them, Jack felt a moment of doubt. Could they really face this escalating threat? Could they bear the weight of so many worlds on their shoulders? But as he looked at his companions, Sarah with her telekinetic powers crackling around her, Venra's scales shifting through impossible colors, Zixara's eyes tracking dimensional weak points, Drakmor's form tensed for battle, and Lumina glowing with pure energy, he knew the answer. Together, Jack said, reaching out to his team both physically and mentally. Whatever comes, we face it together. As one, they moved to meet the oncoming horde, their minds and powers intertwining in ways they were only beginning to understand. The battle that followed was unlike anything they had experienced before. A symphony of synchronized abilities, each member of the team complementing and amplifying the others. Sarah's telekinetic barriers pulsed in time with Venra's dimensional distortions, creating pockets of stability in the chaos of battle. Drakmor's lightning-fast attacks were guided by Zixara's multi-dimensional awareness, striking at weak points before they even fully formed. Lumina's energy pulses, once erratic, now flowed through the team like a life-giving current, boosting their powers and healing injuries almost instantly. And at the center of it all was Jack. His diplomatic skills evolved into something greater. Ability to harmonize their collective consciousness, to direct their shared power with strategic precision. In those moments of perfect synchronization, Jack felt as though they were touching something transcendent, becoming avatars of creation itself in the face of encroaching entropy. Hours blurred into days as they trained, each battle more intense than the last. They died 1,000 simulated deaths, only to be reborn stronger, more in tune with each other, and the cosmic forces they wielded. The boundaries between them became increasingly fluid, individual identities, merging and separating in a dance of infinite complexity. Finally, exhausted but exhilarated, they stood victorious over a field of vanquished simulations. The Guardian materialized before them, its form now a radiant beacon of approval. "You have exceeded all expectations," it said, its voice resonating not just in their ears, but in the very core of their beings. "You are ready for the next phase of your journey." "Next phase?" Jack asked, speaking for the group. "What do you mean?" The Guardian's form expanded, encompassing them in a field of shimmering energy. "You have mastered the fundamentals of your power, but true mastery can only come through real conflict, through facing the void on the front lines of creation itself." Images flashed through their collective consciousness. Distant worlds in peril, civilizations on the brink of annihilation, void hunters swarming across the cosmos in ever-growing numbers. "The multiverse needs you," the Guardian continued. "Not as individuals, not even as a team, but as the vanguard of a new form of existence. You will be our emissaries, our champions against the encroaching darkness." As the weight of this responsibility settled over them, Jack felt a moment of hesitation. They had come so far, achieved so much, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. But then he felt it, the unwavering support of his team, their collective will reinforcing his own. In that moment, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. "We're ready," Jack said, his voice carrying the conviction of not just himself, but of the entire team. The Guardian's form began to fade, but its final words echoed through their minds. Then go forth, children of Earth and Zathra. The fate of all creation rests in your hands. Remember what you have learned, trust in your unity, and know that the hopes of countless worlds go with you. As the precursor facility dissolved around them, replaced by the swirling energies of interdimensional travel, Jack looked to his companions, no, his family. Human and Zathri, once enemies, now united as something greater than either species could have imagined. Whatever lay ahead, whatever cosmic horrors they would face, Jack knew one thing with absolute certainty. They would face it together as one. The next chapter of their incredible journey was about to begin. Escape and evolution. The swirling vortex of interdimensional energy dissipated, leaving Jack and his team standing on the surface of an alien world. The sky above them was a kaleidoscope of colors, multiple suns casting an eerie light over a landscape of crystalline structures and flowing metallic rivers. "Where are we?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with wonder as she took in their surroundings. Zixara's four eyes scanned the horizon, her navigator's instincts working overtime. "If I had to guess, we're in the Andromeda Galaxy, possibly the outskirts of the Velarum system. But it's different somehow." Jack nodded, feeling the wrongness in the air. "The Void Hunters have been here," he said grimly. "Can you feel it? The entropy eating away at the edges of reality." The others murmured in agreement, their heightened senses picking up on the subtle distortions in the fabric of space-time around them. Suddenly, a piercing cry echoed across the crystalline plains. In the distance, a city of impossible architecture came into view, its spires reaching toward the multi-hued sky. And descending upon it was a swarm of Void Hunters, their darkness a stark contrast to the vibrant world below. "Looks like we arrived just in time," Drakmor growled, his claws extending in anticipation of battle. Jack took a deep breath, centering himself and reaching out to the collective consciousness of his team. In an instant, they were connected, their minds and powers intertwining into a singular purpose. "Remember our training," Jack said, his voice resonating both aloud and in their shared mindscape. "We're not just fighting the Void Hunters, we're protecting the very essence of this world, its potential for life and growth." As one, they moved towards the besieged city, their forms blurring with speed enhanced by their combined powers. As they approached, they could see the planet's inhabitants, crystalline beings of living light, desperately trying to fend off the cosmic horrors descending upon them. "Lumina, Venra," Jack called out, his tactical mind assessing the situation in an instant. "Create a barrier around the city. Buy us some time." The young Zathari and the scientist nodded in unison, their powers flaring to life. Lumina's energy manipulation skills had grown exponentially, and as she reached out, a dome of pure light began to form over the city. Venra's dimensional manipulation abilities interwove with Lumina's barrier, creating a shield that existed partially out of phase with normal spacetime. The Void Hunters slammed against the barrier, their tendrils of nothingness seeking purchase but finding none. It wouldn't hold forever, but it gave the team the opening they needed. "Sarah, Zixara," Jack continued, their shared consciousness allowing for instantaneous communication. "Start evacuating the civilians. Get them to safety while we deal with the threat." As Sarah's telekinetic powers lifted groups of frightened crystalline beings to safety, and Zixara used her multidimensional awareness to guide them through stable pockets of spacetime, Jack turned to Drakmor. "Ready for some hunting of our own?" he asked, a grim smile playing on his lips. The Zathri warrior scales rippled with anticipation. "Always, Ambassador." Together, they launched themselves at the swarm of Void Hunters, their combined abilities allowing them to move through the chaotic battlefield with impossible grace. Jack's enhanced senses picked up on the subtle weaknesses in the hunter's forms, while Drakmore's lightning-fast attacks exploited those weaknesses with deadly precision. The battle was like nothing they had experienced before, even in their intense training. The Void Hunters, sensing a true threat, fought with a ferocity born of cosmic hunger. Reality itself seemed to warp and bend around them as the forces of creation and entropy clashed. Jak found himself moving in perfect synchronization with his team, their individual actions forming a greater whole. When a tendril of void energy lashed out at him, Sarah's telekinetic barrier materialized just in time to deflect it. As a hunter tried to flank them, Zixara's warning flashed through their shared consciousness, allowing Venra to shift the dimensional frequency of that area, temporarily phasing the threat out of existence. But for every hunter they defeated, two more seemed to take its place. The barrier around the city was beginning to falter under the relentless assault, and Jak could feel the strain on his team's collective psyche. "We need to end this now," he called out, both aloud and through their mental link. "Zixara, can you locate the focal point of their incursion?" The Zathri navigator's four eyes darted across dimensions, seeing patterns in the chaos that the others could only imagine. "There," she shouted, pointing to a swirling vortex of darkness high above the battlefield. "That's their entry point into this reality. If we can seal it, we can cut off their reinforcements," Jak finished, the plan forming in their shared mind. "All right, team, this is it. Everything we've got focused on that point. Venra, I need you to create a stable pocket of space-time around us. Lumina, channel every ounce of energy you can muster through that pocket. Sarah, you'll guide and amplify that energy. Drakmore, you're our last line of defense. Nothing gets through to disrupt the others." As the team moved into position, Jak felt a surge of pride and affection for these beings who had become closer than family. In the span of a few months, they had gone from bitter enemies to the universe's last best hope against an incomprehensible threat. "Whatever happens," Jak said, his voice thick with emotion, "it has been an honor to fight alongside each of you." With that, they began their desperate gambit. Venra's scales rippled with impossible colors as he shaped reality around them, creating a bubble of stable space-time in the chaos of battle. Within that bubble, Lumina began to glow with an inner light that grew brighter and brighter, until looking at her was like staring into the heart of a star. Sarah, her eyes blazing with psychic fire, reached out with her telekinetic powers, guiding the immense energy Lumina was generating. Jak added his own abilities to the mix, his enhanced senses allowing him to perceive the weak points in the fabric of reality around the Void Hunter's entry point. As their combined power lanced towards the swirling vortex, the Void Hunters seemed to sense the threat. They turned as one, abandoning their attack on the city to swarm towards the team. But Drakmore was ready. The Zathri warrior became a whirlwind of motion, his claws leaving trails of light as he fended off wave after wave of cosmic horrors. The strain was immense. Jak could feel the pressure building in their shared mindscape. The fabric of their very beings stretched to the breaking point. But still they pushed on, pouring every ounce of their combined will into the effort. Just when it seemed they could give no more, when the darkness threatened to overwhelm them, Jak felt a new presence in their collective consciousness. The crystalline beings of the city, witnessing the sacrifice of these strange visitors, joined their essence to the team's efforts. A surge of power unlike anything they had ever experienced flowed through them. The beam of pure creation energy tripled in size, slamming into the Void Hunter's entry point with the force of an exploding star. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, two opposing forces, the entropy of the void and the collective will of life itself, hung in perfect balance. Then, with a reality-shaking implosion, the vortex collapsed in on itself. The remaining void hunters, cut off from their source, began to dissipate like smoke in the wind. As the last of the cosmic horrors faded away, a cheer went up from the crystalline beings of the city. Exhausted beyond measure, Jack and his team sank to the ground, their forms flickering as they struggled to maintain cohesion. The world around them seemed to pulse and shift, the aftermath of their tremendous expenditure of energy rippling across dimensions. As they fought to regain their strength, a figure materialized before them, the Guardian, its form now a radiant beacon of approval. "Well done, children," the Guardian's voice resonated in their minds. "You have achieved what we dared not hope for. Not only have you defeated the Void Hunters, but you have begun to awaken the latent power in other species." Jack looked around at the crystalline beings, seeing them in a new light. The energy they had contributed in the final moments of the battle had changed them, awakening something that had long lain dormant. What happens now?" Sarah asked, her voice weak but filled with wonder. The Guardian's form shimmered with what might have been pride. "Now you continue your journey. There are other worlds in need, other species to awaken, other battles to be fought. But you have proven that the void can be pushed back, that creation can triumph over entropy." As the implications of this sank in, Jack felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had won a great victory, yes, but it was only the beginning. The multiverse was vast, and the threat of the Void Hunters loomed large. But as he looked at his team, at Sarah's determined smile, Venra's shimmering scales, Zixara's four eyes bright with cosmic awareness, Draknor's proud stance, and Lumina's glowing form, he knew that they were equal to the task. "We're ready," Jack said, speaking for all of them. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The Guardian nodded, its form beginning to fade. "Then go forth, champions of creation. The multiverse awaits." As the Guardian disappeared, the team found themselves surrounded by the grateful crystalline beings of the city. In a gesture that transcended language, the aliens shared visions of their history, their culture, their hopes for the future. A future that now seemed bright with possibility, thanks to the actions of these unlikely heroes. Jack felt a tug on his consciousness, a call from distant stars. There were other worlds in need, other battles to be fought. But for now, for this moment, they had earned their rest. As they prepared to depart, to journey to the next world in need of their help, Jack looked at his team, his family, with a sense of profound gratitude. They had come so far from that fateful crash landing, had grown and changed in ways none of them could have imagined. "You know," he said, a smile playing on his lips, "when I took that diplomatic mission to negotiate with the Zathri, I never imagined it would lead to this." Zixara chittered in amusement, her mandibles clicking. "The universe, it seems, has a strange sense of humor, Ambassador." "And an even stranger sense of destiny," Venra added, his scales rippling with contentment. As they linked hands, preparing to journey once more into the unknown, Jack felt a sense of peace settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever cosmic horrors they would face, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. They would face it together, as one. The swirling energies of interdimensional travel engulfed them, carrying them towards their next adventure. As they departed, leaving behind a world forever changed by their presence, Jack couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them to this point. From enemies to allies, from survivors to saviors, they had become something greater than the sum of their parts. They were no longer simply human and Zathri. They were the vanguard of a new age, champions of life and creation in a universe threatened by encroaching darkness. As they soared between the stars, their combined consciousness reaching out to sense the next world in need, Jack Harper, once a simple diplomat, now a cosmic defender, allowed himself a moment of pure, unadulterated hope. The future was uncertain, filled with danger and wonders beyond imagination. But with his team by his side, he knew they could face anything the universe threw at them. Their greatest adventures, it seemed, were only just beginning.